Kia ora. Good morning everyone, Richard Wong here from New Zealand. Today we are going to look at the Nikon Coolpix P1000. It's a camera with a crazy zoom lens on it, so I thought the best place to test out this camera is go somewhere high. So we are going to go up Mount Eden and test out the camera up there. So let's go. If you're from New Zealand, you probably know where Mount Eden is, but in case you're not, Mount Eden is a volcano that is not too far away from the Auckland city centre. It's about 200 meters tall, so not really tall, but it's already one of the tallest mountains near Auckland area. And the P1000 is the successor to the P900. P900 has a pretty crazy zoom lens on it. It's got a 83 times zoom, and the maximum focal length is 2000 millimeter, so that is pretty crazy already. But with the P1000, it has now increased to 3000 millimeter, so that is even crazier. But because of that, the size of the camera has increased quite a bit as well. When I first saw the camera, I was like, whoa, that is a huge camera. It's about maybe I'd say like 2 sizes bigger than the P900, which is already not a small camera at all. And while the Coolpix P900 can only record video up to 1080p resolution, the P1000 can now record 4K video up to 30 frames per second. And because it also have a flip-out screen and external mic input and reasonably wide angle lens in the wide end is 24mm, and also has optical image stabilizer in it, it's actually not bad camera if you want to do a bit of vlogging, probably travel vlogging. So this is what I'm using right now. The only problem is that the camera is about 1.5 kg, so holding it is actually not very easy. So my hand is starting to shake a little bit, so hopefully the optical image stabilizer would balance it out a little bit. So what do you think about the video footage from the P1000? We are now almost arrived the top of the Mount Eden, so I'm going to switch back to my other camera to continue this video. So in terms of the build quality, the P1000 is a solid camera. While it's not exactly like a D850 which built like a tank, but overall you feel when you hold it in the hand, it gives you a very solid, very secure feeling. If you try to twist the body or anything, you don't feel like you can easily distort the body, or there's some plastic part inside there that's about to break if you try to twist it. So nothing like that. There are a couple of ports on the body. There's the external mic jack, there's the HDMI output, there's also a USB port which can be used to transfer data and also can be used to charge the battery inside the body. And speak about the battery, the Coolpix P1000 use a pretty small ENEL28 battery, which is quite small, and especially if you compare to the size of the camera, it looks even smaller. So the battery is just like tiny like this. So the camera has a big motorized and also stabilized lens, so it's not surprising the battery life is not really very good. I can drain the battery relatively easily, after maybe within an hour or so. If I take a lot of photo, especially if I take a lot of video, it drains the battery very quickly. So fortunately, you can use the USB port to charge the battery inside the body, but it'll be good if you can also use external USB power to power the camera as well as charging. So this is probably something that Nikon can improve in their future camera model, so you can just allow everyone to use external USB power bank to power up the camera when your internal battery is running flat. The camera using electronic zoom, so there's a zoom button at top here, but there's also another zoom button here, and this one is programmable, so you can program it to do other things as well. And there's a large dial at the front of the camera that is also customizable. For me, I customize it to control the exposure compensation, so I can easily make the scene brighter and dimmer when I checking the image through either the electronic viewfinder or the LCD screen. Now, speak about the electronic viewfinder, the P1000 has a pretty high resolution 2.3 million dot OLED electronic viewfinder. It is much better than the one that was on the P900, which is quite a bit smaller and also lower resolution. So I really quite enjoy using the electronic viewfinder on the P1000 because it's large, it's high resolution, it's bright, and the lag is not too bad at all. And if you don't want to use the electronic viewfinder, there's also LCD screen at the back, which is fully articulated, so it'd be good when I'm shooting video using the LCD screen. However, the LCD screen is not touch sensitive. I don't know why it's still not touch sensitive, because the P900 didn't have a touch sensitive screen, and the P1000 also doesn't have a touch sensitive screen. And there are many times, especially the first few days when I got the camera, I always try to press on the LCD screen and get it to change the autofocus point, or I try to change some menu settings, and then after a few seconds I notice, oh, actually it doesn't have a touch screen. But apart from that, the LCD screen itself is pretty good, high resolution, very good contrast and color, and I have no problem using it when I'm shooting outdoor. But of course, on a very bright day, I definitely prefer to use the electronic viewfinder, because then I'm not affected by any flare or reflection from the strong sunlight. So the Coolpix P1000's menu system is very typical Nikon style, but if you compare to the high-end DSLR, then you'll find the menu system is a lot simpler. You don't have the same level and depth of customization you can do inside the menu system. But having said that, all the essential settings are available that you can adjust from the menu system, and there are also some pretty cool and handy feature that is also available in the menu. For example, you can set what focal length you want the camera to set to when you turn on the camera. So yeah, overall, while the menu is a bit simple, but I think it should be adequate for most users. However, there's one thing that bugged me a little bit, is that when you go into the menu system and you change one of the settings, and then when you back out the menu system, and then when you jump back into the menu system again, it would default the position of the menu system to the first one instead of the last one that you access. So for example, if I want to play around with the VR setting, which is in the last menu of the whole menu system, and then if I change it and I want to see if it's good, and then I jump out, and then when I go back in, I have to go all the way down and then go and find the VR setting again, instead of it was like, immediately where you were at last time. So yeah, it's a little thing, but it does bug me a little bit, because the Nikon DSLR doesn't have this problem. The biggest selling point of the Coolpix P1000 is definitely its 3000mm maximum focal length. This is something crazy unheard of before this camera. Even the P900 with its 2000mm focal length is already pretty crazy. But if you compare the P900 to this one, the P1000 is definitely up another level or two levels above. So now let me show you the difference between what different focal length is like. Now let me first take a photo at the widest angle. So this is at 24mm focal length. Okay. So now let me take another photo at 200mm focal length. Okay, now let me take one more photo at 600mm focal length. So this is what a lot of super telephoto zoom lens or some of the bridge camera maximum focal length. It's pretty impressive already, I would say. Now let's go to 2000. And that's what the P900 is like. Okay, at last, let's take a photo at the maximum focal length. Even through just the viewfinder, I can already see lots of detail inside the sky tower. I can see people there, I can see what they are doing. And let's look at all the photos side by side, and you can see the difference between from the widest focal length to all the way to 3000 millimeter focal length. One problem you may have when you are shooting photo at very long focal length is that when you are trying to follow or find some target, it might be a bit hard to find because when you are shooting at some very long focal length, your field of view is very tiny. So there's a very good nice feature. It's called a snapback, and what you do is that there's a button that you press it and it will pull back the focus quite a bit. And that would allow you to quickly locate your object and then center it, and then you release the button and then you will go back and zoom in. So yeah, that's a very handy feature and very useful when you are shooting at very long focal length. With such a long focal length lens on the camera, Nikon has put in what they call the Dual Detect Optical VR system to give you a stabilized image, especially important when you are shooting at long focal length. And the factory cam is a 5-stop effective, and I can tell you it works very well. So you probably know that if you are shooting any photo or video at maybe 500 millimeter focal length or longer, it's become quite hard to keep the image steady, because the long focal length means a tiny bit of camera, your hand movement could mean a huge jump in the framing, the position where you are pointing to. And this camera has a 3000 millimeter focal length, which is pretty crazy and very hard. It's almost impossible to shoot any photo or video if you don't have optical image stabilizer on it. And even with optical image stabilizer, I was actually quite worried whether it will work or not, because 3000 millimeter is super crazy long. So let me show you a demo, the difference between the VR system turn on and turn off. Now let me first show you what it looks like with the VR turned on. As you can see, I'm just hand holding the camera and I'm standing. I don't have anything to support me. Now it is at 3000 millimeter focal length. While it does move and jump a little bit, but overall it's very useful. Especially now I'm going to show you what it looks like when I turn off the image stabilizer. Okay, now I have the image stabilizer turned off, and let's zoom in to the same area. As you can see, I actually having a very hard time just trying to keep inside the frame. The thing just jumped too much, and you see, because of the rolling shutter, the image is completely unusable no matter if you are taking photo or video. Oh, where's my, I now lost it completely. Overall, I'm very impressed by the VR system on the Coolpix P1000, and it is essential when you are taking any photo at the telephoto end. And while I said the VR system is very impressive and very good at making the image stabilized, but for the best result, for the sharpest photo, I do recommend you getting a tripod or even just a monopod if you are planning to shoot at the maximum focal length. That would definitely help improve the sharpness and also make it easier for the autofocus system to work, because with the contrast-based autofocus system, if the image is moving too quickly, it would be very hard for the autofocus system to focus correctly. So when you are shooting at the maximum focal length, definitely the autofocus system performance will improve a lot when you are using a monopod or tripod to make it more steady. So I think it would be fair to say that most people buying the P1000 is wanting to use it to take photos of objects far away. But the camera also has a macro mode which allows you to take some pretty decent macro or close-up photos. In terms of the image quality, because the camera has a pretty tiny half-inch sensor and with the 150 times zoom lens on it, so you have to be realistic and lower your expectation a little bit. But having said that, I found the image quality actually pretty good. So all the photos I took from the wide end, which is 24mm, up to maybe 1500 millimeter, are all quite decent. Even when I go up to 2000, 2500, or even 3000 actually, the photo quality is still pretty good. So if you are a pixel peeping photographer, you probably not like this camera. But if you are one of the pixel peeping photographer, you are probably looking at the wrong camera. This is definitely not the camera for you. As a bridge camera with some crazy zoom lens on it, I think the picture quality and the video quality from the Coolpix P1000 should not disappoint most of you, at least when you are shooting on a bright sunny day. And I say at least when you are shooting on a bright sunny day because the small half-inch sensor does have a drawback, is the high ISO performance. So the camera's maximum ISO is 6400, but I would say anything about ISO 800, the image quality start dropping quite significantly. So for me, I would try to keep the ISO at maybe maximum 400 or so. Maybe I would go up to 800 if I really have to, but anything above that, the image quality does drop quite a bit. So I guess a lot of people buying this camera, one of the first things they want to try out is to shoot the moon, because yeah, this is one crazy camera for taking like a full frame moon photo. At maximum focal length, the moon basically just completely fill the frame. Because of that, the camera has a moon mode, so if you switch it, then it will try to do a few adjustments to make you help you capture the best quality moon photo. There are also a couple of things that help you. For example, there's a 3-second timer delay when you press the shutter button, because when you are shooting at 3000mm, even if you have a very sturdy tripod, a tiny touch of the camera would cause quite a bit of camera shake. However, there's one thing that slightly disappoints me, is that when you are shooting in the moon mode, it disabled the raw output for some reason. I don't actually know why, but I noticed actually all the scene mode, they disable the raw output. Don't actually know the reason why, but I wish Nikon could enable the raw output, because the raw output is actually one new feature that is now available on the P1000 compared to the P900. The P900 could only output JPEG file. When I was reviewing there, I really wish the P900 has a raw output, and the P1000 has it. However, the raw output is only available when you are shooting in the PASM mode, the program mode, the aperture priority, the shutter priority, and the full menu mode. I really enjoy shooting using this Coolpix P1000, and I think it has been quite a while that I feel excited when I am shooting photo using a sub 1-inch digital camera. The crazy zoom lens on the P1000 make it a very exciting camera to use, even though if you look at the image quality at pixel level, it may not be super impressive, but this is not the point of this camera. If I buy this camera, this is basically I'm buying a high power telescope that can also take some nice photo and also decent 4K video. And if you consider the price of a nice telescope or a high power binocular, the price and also the size of the P1000 is actually very reasonable, or I can also say it's cheap and small. So for people who are looking at buying a telescope or binocular, you definitely should consider buying a P1000 instead. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you like it, and please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment here, share it, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be creating more video like that in the future. So thanks for watching. You can check out my website. I have some more sample photos on my website, and I will see you next time.